He's a 10.
I choose this family.
Hi guys, welcome to episode 33 of 911 Lone Star Roundup. I'm one of your hosts, Katie, and with me are my lovely co-hosts, Grace.
Hey guys.
And EJ.
Hey everybody.
So today we will be talking about 911 OG Season 4. Disclaimer, we will not be talking about Future Tense, Jinx, Buck Begins, obviously. The last two episodes, so 13 and 14, those will all be separate episodes. We'll also be focusing more on the major storyline, so we're not going to talk about... We've pretty much removed most of the calls. I won't say all, because they're we're only mentioning probably one or two that are actually important, because otherwise this would be 4 hours. If you listen to our season 3 one, I think that one was verging on 3 hours of just recording. We're yeah, we need to make some adjustments for season 4 because that's not the life.
Right.
And stuff. And yeah, so let's get to talking. So we start this season off, and Maddie and Chimney are living separately because of the pregnancy and obviously COVID. And so Maddie is living with Albert, which I think is so funny.
I know that
in
tickles me
Chimney's
for some
place.
weird reason.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's just, I think they're at Maddie's and Albert is living, because obviously is living with Maddie.
No, they're living in Chimney's place.
This is very confusing because there become a point where she did not have a place and they kind of moved in together, but it was never made into a real moment. So I'm no, that makes more sense. So then Buck and Chimney are living together at his place, and I liked this part because it's just funny because Chimney is being very overly cautious, and Buck is just Hen and Eddie both went to their kids months ago. He's and you're the only one still going World War Z.
Which I feel that because that could be said of my family. We still are majorly quarantined and stuff, so I can't fault Chimney. But when it comes down to the actual reasoning,
I thought it was funny, and there was a sliver of me that was okay, does that mean that Hen and Eddie were living at Buck's too?
I'm convinced.
It's quite possible. Oh my god!
It's in my head that happened.
Which in that case, I'm just where
are they all sleeping?
There is a wave of possibility.
That house isn't even apartment, whatever you want to call it. It's basically a loft. It's not even big enough for one person. Right. So how would they fit so many people in there?
Magic? I don't know. I guess it's not very plausible unless someone brought along extra mattresses or something. But they all shared
somebody gets a couch. They go to Target and get air mattresses.
I kind of see Jim and Buck bunking up and same household, and then maybe Hen and Eddie staying at a motel or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And then it was in this episode that it was mentioned that Buck was seeing a woman, or somebody he was talking to on FaceTime, his FaceTime crush or whatever. And it was in this moment, in the first few episodes of the season, where you were something is not right here.
Yeah.
Right.
This does not make any sense. We did not guess what it is, or at least I didn't right off the way, because I was thinking, well, why is he dating someone if at the end of season 3 he was saying how he needed to basically work on himself.
Yeah, sure. That's a lot of working on yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, it was rather confusing.
Yeah. I think I can't remember when I picked up on it, but I know I'd heard rumors that some people had picked up on it earlier and said that they thought he was seeing a therapist, because when COVID first started, pretty much every medical appointment was went online. So I was well, that's possible that he could be seeing a therapist, but I didn't really see it. But I think it was the second episode, I think, is when I caught on that it actually was.
Yeah, there was hints. I noticed rewatching it that there were hints that it wasn't him actually dating someone, mostly because everyone was oh, when are you gonna meet who you're dating? It was almost too obvious. It was brought up so much, you were okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also in this episode, we saw May join the call center as like a dispatcher. And when the promo came out for this season, I was like, oh, that's interesting. But like, I will talk about this as episodes go on. But like, I'm just like, I'm not like, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know if I like it. At this rate, like, we didn't get enough in the first episode to like or dislike it. But there were other things that happened where I was like, I do not like this.
Yeah. I mean, this was, when last season, the third season, we got at the very end, like, May wanting to talk to Maddie about something.
Mm-hmm.
It was, some people speculated, like, she wanted to become a nurse. I thought that.
I do too.
I thought she wanted to be a nurse. The dispatcher thing definitely took me by surprise.
Same.
And I'll be honest, I wasn't on board with it for
Yeah.
a good few episodes.
Yeah.
It was maybe around fourth or fifth episode where I started being like, this isn't as bad as I thought it'd be. And then I started getting on board with it more throughout the season. But at first, I just wasn't digging it.
Yeah.
Well, I think for like when I first, when you mentioned at the end of season 3, her wanting to talk to Maddie, I thought nurse as well, because Maddie had a background being a nurse. But then I was thinking kind of over that summer, I was like, May seemed to not want to follow in what her mom's footsteps were. It was like her mom graduated high school, she went to college. It's just, May just seemed like she was dragging her feet. Like she wasn't really wanting to celebrate getting into a specific college and just all those little things. I'm like, it made me feel like she really doesn't want to go to college. And so, like, I had a kind of a gut feeling that she'd be a dispatcher, and I was,
See, we had someone that called it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't, 100% put my nose on it until I started seeing previews for it, but it makes sense. Like, she didn't seem like I think because of the experience she'd had earlier on in season 3 with, when she helped Athena during that rescue during the tsunami. I think she got a taste of being kind of in a way a first responder. But she knew she didn't want to be like a cop or a firefighter, so she could do paramedic, but I don't know if she's really into the medical field. So being a dispatcher would kind of another form of that. So once I kind of pieced all that together when I saw the clips, I'm like, okay, it makes sense. But yeah, as we go, we'll kind of talk about her being a dispatcher. And I don't know, I'm not against it, but I definitely I could see where the show wanted to kind of give her a little bit more now that she's her character's graduated from high school, so she's now an adult.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of had to keep her. They had to either cut most ties with her and only bring her in occasionally, because if she was off at college, it wouldn't make any sense to bring her in constantly, or make another area there, and so that's what they did. And
Karine Messiah is really cool. I mean, that's the girl who plays May, so she's pretty cool. So I'm glad she stayed around, and we'll see what this season and then the next season kind of brings as to what they decide to do with her.
Yeah, and I think the whole reasoning was she was like, Maddie was like, are you just supposed to be at college, And she's like, well, that would just be online anyways. And I'm like, true.
Very true.
So I get her point and stuff, and then also we see Athena go back to work in this episode and stuff, which I know Bobby wasn't crazy about, but she actually did take a lot of time off. I think she took maybe 6 months off, maybe longer.
Quite a few months, yeah, even after she recovered.
Yeah, which for her, I wouldn't expect her to take that much time off. I feel like she's just she would be the person that goes back to work after a couple weeks or a month. So yeah, not as dramatic, but kind of how Owen was.
Yeah,
just going right back to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Though I did think that her original plan when she went back was to be a do desk duty for quite some time to kind of just ease her foot back in, but then things changed.
So the earthquakes happened, and then the dam broke, and that's how we get into episode 2, which I'm gonna be honest, the dam breaking I didn't think was that interesting of a storyline, compared to the tsunami and even the earthquake. I don't think it holds as much, at least for me it doesn't.
Same.
It was definitely the least exciting of all the natural disasters.
Yeah,
that's exactly
now I still liked it,
Yeah.
But it was definitely, when you compare it to like a big earthquake and a tsunami, I feel like they could have made the mudslide more exciting, but it also would have had trouble comparing in any way.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I still liked it, but it just wasn't as big of a
Yeah.
deal.
And
Yeah.
you know, when they had the first earthquake and then the tsunami too, we kind of got like, I don't know, in the if we ever talked about, or they ever talked about in the show, like what caused the tsunami, because tsunamis just don't happen at random. And then the
Oh, they
earthquake
did.
too.
Earthquake in Alaska, 9-point earthquake off the coast of Alaska.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, that was very
Nope. I'm glad, because I did not remember that. So for, you know, the earthquake, all we saw was pretty much the building that was collapsed in the earthquake scene, and a few other things. So this was cool to see, kind of like the wow, I'm forgetting the word, the collateral damage of the earthquake, of
Yeah.
you know, having an earthquake. It's not always just has an earthquake and that's it. Sometimes it does destroy infrastructure, and in this case it caused a dam to break, and then the dam caused mudslides and things. So it was just kind of cool to see a different aspect. But yeah, it was not,
I mean, we, for the earthquake in season 2, we saw like on the drive to the hotel, we saw various different damage, and we did have the freeway. But overall, it was very centered around 2 places. The mudslide was more spread out. And I did like that.
Because we saw the bus going into that building. We saw, you know, the mudslide, the rescuing people from the mudslide.
The
sign.
the illegal adoption thing where she kidnapped women or coerced women. Remember that? I actually really liked that little accident storyline.
Yeah, like honestly, out of the whole like thing out of this, I really like the bus crash and stuff. I think that was probably the most interesting, and just like if I think about the dam breaking, I think that's like the major storyline just in this episode in general that I remember.
Honestly, I'm the opposite. I think of the bus crash, but honestly, this may have to do with the fact that when I first watched it, it wasn't great quality because like someone was showing me and the streaming was difficult. But honestly, I was underwhelmed by the bus crash. Like that didn't do much for me. If I had to choose my main accident from there, it would be the whole, I don't even know what you call it, trafficking, adoption system, whatever it is. That particular theme.
Yeah, well, and wasn't so Athena was planning on going back to desk duty, but then because of the earthquake and then the help that they needed, like evacuating people, didn't her boss like kind of talk her into going out into the field?
Yeah, and she had that lady.
Yeah.
That didn't leave her house for 7 years.
Yeah.
That's
I was just like,
yeah. So Athena like had to dive back in the deep end almost, you know, just coming back from work. So I did feel kind of bad for Athena though, because you know she did want to kind of ease herself back in and didn't really get that chance.
Well, here's the thing with being a first responder: there is little such thing as easing back in.
Yeah, like honestly, I think it was better that she wasn't eased in, just because like imagine if she tried to stay in desk duty. I feel like that might have piled up on her and she would have just never wanted to go back out for the fear and
that
stuff.
Or she would have been driven absolutely crazy within like 2 days. I don't see her as someone being happy being behind a desk. In fact, whenever she's been desked, like benched, so to speak, it's not been great.
Yeah, which was kind of like a change of pace for her, because usually you would expect her to want to go back out there. Which entirely she probably wasn't doing it for herself. She was probably also doing it for her family that's very scared of, you know, what happened and that kind of stuff. But yeah.
We do find out more, and this won't be in this episode because it was in the finale. We find out more of her emotions surrounding that.
Oh yeah,
which I was glad they didn't just leave it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And we get kind of like, so kind of episode 1 and 2 kind of were like kind of a part 1, part 2 almost, because it just kind of went together. And then so it's like towards the end of episode 2 we started getting some like updates on people and what stuff was going on.
Yeah, it didn't seem like a part 1 and part 2 for me. Honestly, I kind kind of hate when shows do part 1 and part 2s. I'm just like, seriously, like, I just don't like part 1, part 2s in general. I guess I'm that person. But like, I liked it. They always do a good job of not making it feel like a part 1 and part 2. They kind of phase it into each other better, like it flows better. So it doesn't feel like when you're watching that it's like previously, because I kind of hate that. But we kind of like get like a conclusion, like Chimney finally goes back to home to Maddie, and then we see like Michael and David, which
I loved it.
I love
them.
Yeah, I like them too. And stuff, and we know that like David is working in the code word, so we kind of see that storyline, which I liked that it wasn't like too much, like they showed it without like going too overboard, which I liked and stuff, because some things you're just like, yeah, I don't want to see all of this, but okay.
It was natural. It was like naturally
Exactly.
integrated, and I'm glad they did it because we already knew he was a doctor.
Right.
But also it was like, particularly because Michael and David, I love them, but they're like a smaller background couple. If it had been a more prominent couple, maybe have it more, but I think they did it just right.
Yeah. And then like Albert goes to live with Buck, which I love that. And then we finally, this is the point where we see that Buck is talking to a therapist. It gets revealed, so.
And I absolutely love that.
Yeah. Like, I was like, okay, this is perfect. Like, yes. And then we jump, because the next one would have been future tense. So then we jump to episode 4, which this is gonna be a little confusing because we are going to be talking about future tense and Jinx together next week. So we're gonna have to like just give a little bit of context to make things make a little sense at some point. But basically, Maddie told Chimney, I think in the previous episode, like a family secret or whatever, but we don't know what the secret is until the end of this episode, and then it leads into Buck Begins and stuff. So like Chimney wants to tell Albert the secret because he has to get it off his chest, and he has said that he's terrible with secrets and stuff, which funny. And so like he tries to tell Albert the secret, and Albert just ends up running away from him. And I'm like, relatable.
That. I was like almost falling over laughing.
Albert,
I'm so nosy that when people tell me secrets, I'm like, yes, give me more. But also part of me is Albert.
Oh my god,
actually,
same.
that's me running away from uncomfortable situations.
Same.
Like, hell no. But also, can I just say, I loved the like brotherness of them playing basketball together.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, see, the secret was something that was held over us for a couple episodes, so people had like these crazy theories about the secret. Like a lot of people. So people had
even Jennifer Love Hewitt responded to a couple of them, was like,
I forgot about that.
She was like, to those who think Maddie's Buck's mom.
Yeah, that's the one. A lot of people were DMing me at the time being like, I think Maddie is Buck's mom, and I'm like, that is ridiculous. Like, I'm pretty sure I flat out said that's ridiculous. Like, there's no way. And
absolutely ridiculous.
It's so stupid. Like, I'm sorry, but it's really dumb.
And I feel validated saying that because Jennifer Love Hewitt basically went and said the same thing but in nicer words.
I didn't think the mom, but I definitely thought Buck was adopted.
I thought Buck was adopted. That just made sense to me for some reason.
I did think that as
because
well.
A lot of like, not all, definitely not all, but especially like foster and adopted kids, they often wind up with a sense of like not having belonged and having been cared about. So that just made sense to me because that seemed like a lot of what Buck had. But no, of course, Fox had to make it a lot more complicated.
Yeah, pretty much. And stuff. Yeah, and so this is like after Buck had gotten back from Texas after the wildfires. So Buck had to tell Maddie had to tell Buck that their parents were coming to LA, and so we meet them and don't like them right off the bat. Don't even like them in this episode and stuff. And yeah, like, so in future tense, like the whole therapy thing is revealed to Maddie. Like, she finds out about it, and like, so she calls the mom and was like, did you know Buck was in therapy? And I'm just like, Jesus, Maddie, like, really?
Yeah,
really?
Why, of all people to ask, that's not the person to.
Okay. That was like my inner self, me who like goes to therapy, me who's like, I was screaming at that point. I was like, that was a fucking invasion of privacy.
Uh-huh.
And that was like so just
Yeah.
it was a very bad.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll save my full thoughts from when we actually talk about that part.
I'll just repeat what I just said, but yes.
Yeah, because I have like, I don't know, I have like a lot more thoughts that I've thought out when we talk about that, so I'll save it for then and stuff. But yeah, so like Chimney meets the parents, and I believe he brings Albert along because he's like, I'm not going through this alone, you're coming with me and stuff, which is really funny.
Chimney's a mood throughout all of this.
Yeah, and I just remember this, like the part where they meet Chimney, but he's obviously introduced himself as Howard, and then like they call him Buck, like obviously I'm talking about Buck, and so the mom, I think, was like, people still call you that, and he's like, it's just a nickname, Mom. And then like Chimney says something along the lines of like, oh, you guys don't like nicknames, and it's like, yeah, you don't want to know what they actually call him.
Oh yeah, didn't it come? I feel like it went opposite. It might have been. I don't know. In my head, I thought it was when somebody said something about Buck, and they're like, "Oh, are you still going by that atrocious nicknames?" And then Chim said that, and then she's like, "You don't have an odd nickname, do you?" And he's like, "No, it's Howard," or something like that.
I think it was somewhat like that.
No, I just watched 4 and 5 not too long ago, so I kind of have this a little fresh in my mind. It was Buck. People still call you that, and he's like,
yeah, exactly.
Mom. But and I think it was Chim or Albert that was like, you guys don't like nicknames, but Maddie. And Maddie's like, is the name on my birth certificate.
Oh yeah,
I was a little surprised by that. And then I think it was something like and then they addressed him by Howard, and they're like, oh, do you go by Howard? And he like glanced at Maddie, and she's like, yeah, you go by Howard. So he's like, yes, Howard's fine.
Yeah, that was like, yeah, that's exactly how it happened and stuff. Yeah, and then like we get to like the dinner, and I think like this is like the point where like the parents had made like comments like, oh, we heard you were in therapy or something, and like something like that. But I really like at some point in the dinner when Buck was like talking about how he actually felt by his parents, and he was like, oh, and you don't want to know why I'm in therapy? It is because I spent my entire life feeling like a constant disappointment. And you want to talk about our jobs? You think our job is dangerous? I have walked through fire every single day of my life because of you. This is why I am in therapy, because nothing I ever did was good enough. And I was like,
go Buck.
I loved that line. That is
Me
probably
too.
like his strongest line in this sense of the season. Like that sticks out to me every time I watch this episode, and just in general.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
I was like, go baby. Like, preach.
Yeah. And then at the end of this episode, this is when everything like unravels, because the parents had given Maddie her like baby box, and Buck and her were looking at it, and Buck finds a picture in there, and he thinks it's of him. He's like, who's this like handsome devil or something along the lines of that. And
the moment you see Maddie freeze, and
she's just like, oh shit. And like,
doesn't she
like,
see, because he says something like, oh, I don't remember that bike or something like that.
No,
that doesn't look like her house. I think was the
it was a house. It was a house. He's like,
because technically he did have the bike at one point.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which will be addressed in our Buck Begins.
Yeah. Like it was like, this does not look like our house, and like that's when Maddie was just like, and she's like, oh, I wasn't like born yet. This can't be right. And Maddie's just like, okay, I have to tell you something.
Yeah.
So
and then they leave on the cliffhanger of Daniel being the brother who died. And he's like, what?
Yeah. And this is at the point where I was like, okay, this makes a little more sense. I mean, I don't like this, but I also didn't. Okay. Like, I feel like the adoption was almost like too obvious. Like, I feel like that would be like very stereotypical. And I think this is also very stereotypical, but like, it also makes a ton of sense. So I can't be totally mad at it.
I kind of liked it. I wasn't certain about it at first, but like looking back on it and how it went later, like I liked it.
Yeah, like that's how I feel about it exactly. Like, I wasn't like, I had to like really think about it and like really get it, but like, it literally, like, I'm just gonna say this one thing. When Eddie and Buck begins was like, this explains so much of you. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, it explains so much of the series.
Oh my god, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So moving on to episode 7. This is when Hen's mom basically shows up and she's like, I'm moving to LA, and we're like, oh, Hen has a mom. I mean, obviously, but that's just how I view things sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, she'd been mentioned before.
Yeah, I just did not remember that.
You know, it's out of sight, out of mind. I
Yeah,
never
honestly.
saw anything about it, so I'm just like, oh wait, okay, that exists. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like also in this episode, this is when Buck went on that really bad date with who he didn't know was his neighbor at the time.
Right.
That is so awkward. Like he that night, like when he comes home and like after they had like the cheesecake, I think it was, or some type of dessert from the restaurant that he had brought home for Albert, basically. And he goes out to throw out the trash and she's right there. And then he comes back in with said trash and Albert's like, what's wrong? And he's like, we have to move. I was like, mood.
That was like such a mood. It was
was-
so accurate. And I
Yeah.
never liked her anyway, so like
Same.
I just want to move just because of like her.
She was so judgmental, like in the date. Like he would mention things, and she would be like, I don't know.
She
She
did everything he said wrong.
yeah, she would take
Purposefully.
she would take everything like out of context. I feel like, and she would judge him for like whatever he said, and it's just like, oh, what? Excuse me? Like, no, bye.
Like Buck, go back to being like happy single. It's not
Literally.
worth it
Yeah.
for this person.
Like, bye.
Bye.
That's exactly how I felt and stuff. And later in the episode of Hen's mom, the storyline kind of unraveled with her mom basically living out of her car because like
She
she-
lost her money in Vegas or
Yeah.
something like that.
yeah, exactly. And stuff. So like she comes to live with Hen, Karen, and the kids, and I was like, oh, love this.
Speaking
Yeah.
of the kids, though, at this time, so because of COVID, all the court stuff so they've had Nia for like almost a year, and she was just supposed to be a foster for a short time, and so isn't this building up to the new storyline coming up?
Yeah, I think it like comes up in a few episodes from here and stuff. Like also like I feel like they were never really clear that she would just be a foster. I think it was kind of implied they were going to adopt her and that like
They were
there
looking
would
into it.
there
Yeah,
would
they
be no issues. They never really implied that like this would ever end. So it was kind of like, oh, we're gonna adopt her.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like I think like what happens later was kind of like a shock because we were like, or at least I was like, what's
Yeah,
going
same.
on?
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, and then at the end of this episode, Albert had been hooking up with State Veronica, and I was just like, oh no, no, what is going on here? This is not it.
I was just like,
Albert,
Albert?
no.
Okay.
Uh,
That was
That
kind of
is
my
a bad
mental
idea.
process. I'm like, I can't even process this right now.
yeah. So moving on to the next episode, Eddie goes out with Anna and Buck is babysitting, and so in my head I was like, so Buck babysits, Carlos babysits,
I love it.
Ooh.
yeah, I really like that. Like I like the whole storyline of that. Like I was like seeing Buck babysit and stuff. Like I don't know, it's just super cute. And also in the beginning of this episode, it was like Chimney and Maddie were having like a appointment with the doctor, like at home or whatever, and Maddie kind of like after they get out the call because the doctor had mentioned that their plan might change or something because she's like busy with like everything that's going on, and Maddie kind of reveals to Chimney after the call that she wants a home birth, and he's like, oh, excuse me. Like
Yeah.
he kind of doesn't say anything, but you know what he's thinking, and I believe he talks to Hannah about it later and stuff, which I think is, I don't know, I think it's kind of funny and stuff, like not funny, but kind of ish. And then
I
of
have a
course-
bone to pick with a scene that goes off of this,
Mhm.
and I just remembered, so I'm glad I just remember when we get there.
Okay. Yeah, so then of course nothing can go like completely right in the season. So
Right.
Book of course has to run into Taylor on a call, and I'm like, oh dear God, no, because I don't like I don't like them as a couple. I feel, I will be honest, like in this season I liked her a little bit better. I didn't really see, like I saw that she kind of changed. She wasn't like the same person.
Mhm.
But I still don't like her. Like, I don't dislike her, but I don't like her for Buck. I guess that's a better way to put it. Like, and stuff.
Promote male and female friendships and cut out the crap. That's basically my line. I did not mind Taylor as a
Mhm.
person.
That's what I mean.
Do not like the relationship, and not just because I'm a Buddy fan.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay,
Doesn't
like,
fit.
yeah, like, I'm not gonna be like, ugh, don't
And I'm
want you
gonna say the
around.
same for Anna. I like Anna. Do not like the relationship.
Agreed.
That was perfect.
We literally said
You
that at
couldn't
the
have
same
played that better.
time.
She tried.
It's just how things worked out. It's fate, okay?
Yeah.
At least we didn't jinx ourselves.
Woo! That's true.
Oh God, let's not say the J word here. Oh my God, we're gonna get
Yep.
into the. Anyways, Eddie. This is the episode where Eddie tells Chris that he's dating. He doesn't say who yet, but yeah, and like I like the scene leading up to this moment, even though well, I just like things that happen after this, but then like Chris breaks like the salad bowl and like he runs off and stuff, and we think he goes to his room. But then later, a little bit later, we find out that Eddie goes looking for him when he's not in his room, and then he gets like a phone call on his like phone, and it's like Buck, and he's like, Buck, Christopher's missing, and he's like, no, he's not, he's here.
Right. Yeah.
And I
Chris
gotta
had stolen Eddie's phone to call Uber to
okay,
Bucks.
that would never happen in real life because it's illegal for a child to ride an Uber without an adult. Like,
Did not know that, but it makes sense.
yeah, I
And
heard
that's
actually
fine.
about this recently. I saw a video of somebody who drives for Uber that said that they can't have a child ride with them unless there's an adult with them. Like it's a law. So like I was like, oh yeah.
It's a good law.
Yeah, honestly it is, because like I can see how they could go wrong in so many ways. Like they could get accused of kidnapping, they could get accused of so many things. So like it's obviously there for a reason. But anyways, so Chris obviously goes to Bugs. Like where else would he go? Like stepdad, yes. Second dad, yes. Bonus dad, yes. How
We
many
get
things?
so many family vibes.
Oh my
It
God,
was
this whole
such a
season.
thing.
This whole season is a buddy vibe. Let me just put that out there.
Yes, it
Yes,
is.
yes, and more yeses.
Yes, I love like the whole Buck and Chris scene where he's just like, Buck's like, I heard about you blowing up on your dad, and Chris is just like, I don't want to talk about it. And he's like, well, you're here, so we got to talk about something.
Yeah.
And stuff, and like he's like, come on, look, you were here for me when I needed to talk, so now I'm gonna be here for you. That's what friends do. And then he kind of told Buck how like Eddie was dating and stuff, and like kind of Buck or Chris's or yeah, no, Buck is like, that's gotta be weird for you with your mom, and he's like, I promise you, like he's not like trying to replace your mom or anything, or like it doesn't mean that he has forgotten about your mom. And he's like, I wish I could forget, and Buck is just like kind of confused. And like Chris is just like, people go away, not just mom, Evelita, Carla, my friends, they leave, and then I miss them. I don't want to miss anybody else. And I'm like, oh. And like I love
kids really struggled during COVID because a lot, like they went from seeing family members to like being completely cut off and disconnected from a lot of family.
yeah, and like they don't understand, like they don't really realize, even if they know like what's happening, they can't really like understand the full picture of like what was happening and stuff. And like Buck is just like the reason, like he's just a voice of reason, and like he's like, yeah, people go away and it's sad and it hurts, but you know, not everyone goes away forever. Sometimes they come back, and as much as you miss them, that's how happy we are to see them again. Your grandma, your friends, Carla, you're gonna see them all again. He's like, do you promise? And Buck's like, I do. Until that happens, you still got me because I'm not going anywhere. And then like yeah, exactly. And then Chris is just like, hey, Buck. And he's like, yeah, buddy. He's like, you're a good friend. That literally makes me so happy.
I don't remember when exactly, but I remember that at some point earlier in the season, he got called a bad friend. And I don't remember the context of it, but I just remember it was something that at the time I was like, validation? Like, you know, he's a good friend!
Yeah. Speaking of good friends, so Albert comes home and he says that he broke up with Veronica, and I was like, okay, Albert, yes.
Good Albert.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good friend.
Yeah, she seemed high maintenance.
Oh my god, yeah. She just seemed like too much. Like, please leave.
Yeah.
Escort yourself out, woman.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the moment when, like, Hannah and Karen get the news that Nia will be reunified with her birth mother. And, like, this is really sad. And, like, I really hate this because they made us think that, like, they were gonna adopt her and that she was gonna stick around. But, like, in all seriousness, reunification is good. And, like, when it can happen, it's important and stuff, but it's really sad for the sake of the show. But like real life, looking at this as a real life, it's like good.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it happens all the time, and it's sad. And I was definitely like, okay, how are they going to handle this? Because that just seems like a really weird place to leave it. And I was definitely a little mad at how they led things on. And I'm looking in through the notes right now, and I'm seeing that the scene I was thinking of isn't really mentioned, so I'm going to go back a little bit. They did a lot of like extreme promo manipulation in this season. And one of them was them throwing in a scene of Chimney saying, I can't do this. And that was giving everyone the impression that he was backing out again, so to speak. And I didn't think so, but I was mad at the promo. Because I'm like...
I try to block the promos out, so that's why.
Yeah. And so they did a lot of promo manipulation with that. They did it with, like, Nia and, like, that info. I do get sick of, like, the, so to speak, clickbait.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we already see that enough, like, online. Like, can we not be doing this? I guess, like, promos have been doing this for, like, years and years, so I guess this is, like, the clickbait before clickbait, but still.
Yeah. It's frustrating, especially when things don't go.
We're still if you tell us the truth.
Yeah. And I think they want to, like, get your interest, and they want you to come, and then they throw things out. Just like they did with Owen and Judd, that scene. We're thinking it's talking about Grace and the accident, and it actually was talking about Marjan.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, so, I mean, and in the, you know, the promo and stuff, I don't really take what I see in the promos to heart anyways, just because they're always so quick that it's like they only want to give you just like a little tiny nugget.
I don't either. Like, I always look at promos as just like, this is what potentially will be happening. It's like, it's a pretty good guide. They don't go too far off and stuff. Usually, it's usually all that's there. It just might not be in the context which we think, which I think is partially on us because we're like, okay, this is what's gonna happen, because we're constantly just trying to figure out what's going to happen before we actually see it.
And then I was gonna say that, you know, the whole Hen and Karen and Nia situation, I think like we would always, at the end of season 3, we kind of assumed that they were getting Nia and they were going to eventually adopt her, and they were starting to plan that. They didn't really realize the situation Nia's birth mom was in. So it wasn't until this kind of news came up, they're like, hey, you know, she's been getting back on track, but because of COVID, everything took longer. So it's sad. I'm glad that they brought this up in the storyline, because I think it happens so frequently. You hear the horror stories or the stories and the sad stories of, you know, a kid getting pulled out of like an adoptive situation because the parents want him back, and it, you know, the goal for the state, they don't want to tear apart families if at all possible. And there are times when the parents can truly not take care of the kids. But you know, and that, as we see later, you know, we'll see kind of the storyline progress. I actually kind of liked what they did at the end of the season too. That was pretty cool. But we'll get there.
We also, with the storyline, and we see it more, but I'm just going to tackle it here. I think it's a big misconception that when somebody gets put in foster care, it's because they're in an abusive situation or a neglectful situation. In this case, it wasn't really either.
Yeah.
Nia's birth mother just couldn't take care of her at the time.
Yeah.
And that's a hard decision to make.
Well, wasn't she caught because they were living out of her car or something? And so the CPS had to take the kid, or like she made the decision to let CPS take her daughter because she couldn't.
I forget the exact circumstances.
Yeah, I don't remember it either. I think that sounds pretty valid though, so that probably is it.
Yeah.
And so it was more like the storyline was the birth mother, like she needed to get on her feet, she needed to get a job, she needed to get an apartment, and she's
I think
like,
it was
slowly
something
starting
concerning
to do
COVID that had,
Yeah.
or wait, no, COVID was after Nia came in. I don't remember exactly what it was, but
well, I think the process of like getting an apartment, getting a job, and all that stuff took longer because of COVID.
Yeah.
That's why. So Nia had been with them for quite a lot longer than initially expected to be.
Right, yeah.
So wasn't this the last episode before the hiatus?
Yeah, no, because it was
because it
8.
was 8. Yeah.
Yeah. So then when we come back, this makes so much sense because when we came back, like a couple weeks before, there was this huge like car accident, and it was hinted that Albert was in it, and like everyone was like, "Okay, he's gonna die." Well, this is because they had said that somebody was gonna die on this season, which spoiler alert, that wasn't true. So I don't know why they said that if like nobody died. So like in my head, I was like, okay, here it is, Albert's gonna die, and I had like gotten to the point where I was like, I really like him, and I feel like they could do so much with him. So I was like, no, why are they doing this? Then it didn't end up happening, and I was so relieved. And
I know their little again clickbait kind of thing about somebody dying this season was really annoying.
Yeah, it was annoying because every episode you're like, maybe somebody will die today.
Yeah.
Like,
All
so
right.
that was where my brain was at this whole season.
I actually think that was meant, like, I think there was supposed to be a death at the end of the season. I just think that they decided to change their minds.
Oh, you should bring forth your theory you said to me the other day.
Ooh.
Oh,
You should totally do it.
Oh, jeez.
My theory was, I have heard that they actually were planning on killing Eddie at the end of the season. And I think around the time that these episodes were going is when they were starting to write this final couple of episodes. I think they were planning on killing Eddie, but they got enough positive response from the cast to say, you're not killing Eddie, right? And I think they changed it up. So like, I think at the beginning, like when they were hinting that somebody was going to die, I think they were hinting that they were planning on killing Eddie off. And the whole Chris and Eddie, or Buck and Eddie scene at the end was never meant to happen. I think that was meant to be Buck getting a call from Eddie's lawyer saying, just so you know, you've got custody of Chris.
Surprise! Sorry, I had to come in and say that.
That's, you know, with the whole, but that's stuff we can talk about in when we talk about those episodes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Anyways, this episode was so much like episode 9. Like there was just so many moving parts. Like Maddie was like just about to like give birth. Like there was so many moments where she was like, I might be going into labor, and I was like, never mind.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like mood. And there were like a lot of things with May and then Athena that happened within these episodes. Like May got a friend request from the girl that like bullied her, which was like in season 1.
Bullied her into trying to kill herself. More specifically.
Yeah. And
I'm sitting there like, I can see why Athena is concerned.
Yeah. See, I see Athena's view in this episode, but I also don't really like how she acted towards the whole thing in general. This is kind of the moments where I was like, I don't really agree with Athena like in these episodes. Like I don't really like how she acted in a sense. Like I understand that's her mother, and like no matter how old your kids get, you're gonna try and protect them, and you're gonna like you're just gonna be like so protective. But also like she's an adult at this point, and that was also years ago, and obviously Athena has more personal connection with that because obviously she made the 911 call, she saw these things and that kind of stuff. But she's also an adult, and like people can change. And so I didn't really necessarily, also I like think she was being a little too hard on May, where she should have been like listening to her a bit, maybe.
Athena does have that issue. of being able to step back and listen. As
Yeah.
she can't really. Like, sometimes she can, but it sometimes takes someone reminding her that she isn't.
Well, and
Which
think,
I love Athena, but
Yeah.
like in this
Yeah.
instance.
and I think too, Athena also felt guilty because May tried to commit suicide by taking pills that Athena had left over in her, medicine cabinet. So
Yeah.
she felt guilty for being the one that like kept the meds around, even though she probably should have gotten rid of them.
Right, yeah, and like I get that that's guilt you're never gonna get rid of, but I was just like, oh, Athena, please.
It was a lot of pleas for me for like both of them in a way, because both of them just need to stop and listen and reset.
Mhm.
Exactly,
They're too much alike.
That's
I
what I
think that's
mean.
a big thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like that honestly reminds me of me and my mom, because sometimes my mom and I can be too like, and we'll like pick her over like the stupidest things, and my dad will be like, "You two need to stop. Like you guys are like," and it'll be like, "We're getting along," and my dad will be like, "Are you sure?"
Totally, this is love.
Exactly. And stuff. Wow. Yeah. And like of course the whole like thing with this episode is like the whole drunk driving thing, which we'll get to literally just in a second. But like of course when Maddie gets this call, and this call made me gross watching this while I was watching it, like it gave me a legit chills, and I was so disgusted at just the situation. And like it's a kid in the back of the car of a woman that's like drunk driving, and she caused like this major pile up and stuff. But also during this call, of course, Maddie goes into labor in true
Of
911
course, they
fashion.
never do anything like
Right.
halfway.
They can never do anything normal.
Why would they
And
ever want to
so-
do something silly like that?
Exactly. Yeah, it was just like
But I do love what Sue says. Captain Nash, could you possibly spare a paramedic for a pregnant lady at dispatch? And Bobby's like, well, we're a little short-handed. Isn't there a closer thing? He's like, well, yeah, but the dad's out there.
And I liked that. I was like,
and
I was
Chimney's
saying-
like,
Cutely
what?
done.
His face.
oh yeah, no,
he was
and
like,
yeah, and I like the Maddie Josh scene. Like they've neglected them this whole season. Let me just
Yes.
add, like I hate that,
Mhm.
but I like this scene where like Maddie was like, it was like when Josh was like saying how he was getting his car and they were going to the hospital, and Maddie was like, it just feels like it's going so fast, and Josh is like, you're nine and a half
Right.
months pregnant. It's not that fast. And I was like,
Right.
mood.
I was like, yeah,
I love
true.
that scene.
That's
Yeah,
weird.
same. Like it was like everything and stuff.
Yeah, I have missed them this season, so I am glad for the little tidbits.
Same.
It's like epic duo, them.
Yeah, same. Yeah, so then we eventually find out in this whole episode that Albert was in the pileup. It happened when we see his 911 call come in, but then it had dropped.
Yeah.
He was talking to May, and then like they redial, and then you hear his voicemail, which is such a mood. It's like, please do not leave a message. That's what texts are for. And I was like, low key, I was like, maybe I'll make that my voicemail.
Yeah, and
That's a funny one.
Didn't
I
it
like.
start with like, "Hello, this is Albert"?
Well,
Hahn,"
yeah.
And then, so like when they called him back, and then like she's like, "Isn't that Chimney's brother?"
Yeah, she's like, Bobby, isn't Albert Hahn Chimney's brother? And he's like, yeah,
Wait, what?
what? Say what? And then like the whole thing was that like she was saying that like, oh yeah, he was in the pile up, and like then there comes to a point where like she's like, yeah, we tried to call him back, but like he didn't pick up, and we just heard his voicemail, and Buck was like, what did his voicemail say? And she's like, something about like don't leave a message, and he's like, that because that's what texts are for, and I was like, yeah, exactly.
Can I just say that when they were looking for Albert and all that mess, they totally needed Paul to figure it out. Like honestly,
Oh my gosh,
Paul would have
yes.
totally figured out exactly where he was.
Oh
And,
yeah,
like,
same. Oh my god, yeah. Like my heart was racing just like watching this the first time, because I was like, I was thinking he was gonna die, like obviously, and so I was like, come on, come on. I was like, Albert, don't die. And he,
Yeah, I know.
in his call, he was like, I'm bleeding a lot, and I was like, no kidding.
No shit. Totally.
Totally, yeah, a lot. And like, yeah, so then like they rescue him, and he's not dying. Obviously Chimney wasn't there, and Chimney doesn't
Probably
find
best.
out.
I
Yeah,
was gonna say probably best.
Probably bust. Yeah, no, if Jimmy was there, he'd be freaking out. Let's just be real. That's just his
And he didn't need
personality.
to have his pregnant girlfriend giving birth and a missing, potentially dead brother all at the same time.
Yeah,
Ignorance
he
is
found-
sometimes actually bliss.
Yeah.
But it was so hard when Buck brought the baby thing. He's like, "How did you have that?"
Oh yeah, I
At
forgot
the
about that.
hospital. Oh, that was so hard.
Yeah.
I was like, Chimney's like, "Wait a second, Albert had that. Why do you have that?"
Yeah.
Explaining that one. But
Yeah.
fortunately, the baby was already here by then.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. He
And I
finds
loved how
out
Buck
after.
like walked in, but he couldn't technically be a visitor because of the policies for COVID. So he just like from a distance got to see his niece.
Oh, God, Uncle Buck.
Oh my god, yes. Okay, yes. I can't wait till I get to that part. Which actually is like the next like obviously like so like the whole thing with Albert, just to wrap that up, basically Chimney sits with him in the hospital. This might even no. I'm just never mind. So like Chimney sits with him in the hospital and he's like giving this whole speech about like how tough Hans are and that they like that like he needs to wake up or whatever because he doesn't know if like he can handle it or something like that. And then like of course he wakes up and it's like, oh thank God.
Of course. Yeah. It was a very sweet scene though.
Yeah,
I know, yeah.
It's like I've never been the biggest fan of Albert. Like I've just never had him endeared to me. But I didn't want him to die, and I was like, no, don't let him die.
I was kind of thinking, I'm like, so, you know, Chimney's obviously didn't have a good relationship with his dad. His mom passed away. Chim's been through a lot. And then to have Albert back in his life, even I think for Chim, he was still growing to love his brother. Like they were trying.
I think he had just a lot of buried resentment.
Yeah. So there was a lot. So like, I think this was a great like moment of like really connecting.
Yeah. The previous season, I think that's when Albert became more of like he started coming around more, and he kind of came to LA to stay. And it was kind of like I didn't like him when he first came in because he was kind of a mess and stuff. Like, let's just to be honest. But this season they really kind of made him into like a person. I guess is a good way to put it. Like they just really made something out of him. I guess is a better way to say that than just saying his person because like obviously, but that's just where my mind went.
I think when they brought him in, I'm not sure they had a definite plan on what they wanted to do with him.
Yeah.
But then his character sort of took off and they were like, okay, so now we have to like make him a person. And
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I could be wrong. They could have had it planned before, but it just kind of feels like it was okay. Revamping that idea. Let's bring it in full time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I believe he became a series regular like before the season had even aired.
I don't know about that. Probably though.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that because it was closer to this moment. It was at some point when they were started filming that he became a series regular. So I was like, okay, there's no way they're getting rid of him. Okay, which is good. But yeah, anyways, Uncle Buck. So Buck like over FaceTime meets his niece and stuff, and it's adorable. And I love when Maddie says when Chimney's not around, she says I can't. She says like something like I can't believe Chimney. Well, no, she mentions Buck as like Uncle Buck, like meet your Uncle Buck, and then she's like, I can't believe Chimney missed the first Uncle Buck, and Buck's like, it's okay, knowing him, I'm sure we're in for about 10,000 more of those. Then Chimney walks in the room right away. Was like, Uncle Buck, was I the first one? Was that
like,
I was the first one, right?
Wink, wink.
And they're just like, yeah.
I loved it.
It was so cute. And Maddie's like, absolutely, yep, you were the first one. I would now like Buck to just be called Uncle Buck. Like, and when they're talking about her, and they do, like, I liked how they didn't really waste any time. Like Maddie tells Chimney meaning what her name is and that she chose the name, and he's like, I don't know if I should be mad or relieved or something along the lines of that. And Maddie's just like, Maddie named her after his mom, Ji-Yan. Yeah, they just call her G, which I'm like, thank God, because I don't want to have to figure out that like pronunciation the whole time because it's confusing.
Also, the name is sort of big, at least in American culture, for a little baby. So, yeah, I think it works.
Yeah,
I think that was also an adorable thing of Maddie to have done.
Yeah. Didn't it come up because she had been talking to his like friend's parents, and she's like, "Oh, I wish Ji-yoon could be here. I wish Ji-yoon could meet her." And so everything she kept saying that, and that's kind of where she got the idea to name her after.
Oh yeah, I forget
Jim's
her
mom.
name, but like Kevin's mom kept like she was
Mhm.
talking to her. I think they could just call her Mrs. Lee.
Yeah.
Oh, Lee. Okay.
Yeah,
The
I was
other day
trying
I
to-
was going, what is her name?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Mrs. Lee. They never really call her by her first name, so I have no idea what it is. But it doesn't really matter. But she was like, "Oh yeah, I was talking to Mrs. Lee," and she kept just saying, "I wish she was here. I wish she was here," and I was just like, "Aw."
Yeah. It was sweet. It was all
Yeah.
very sweet.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so then we get to the last two episodes that we will be talking about. And in episode 10, Nia is officially reunified with her birth mom. And honestly, this was the episode that was like the treasury hunt thingy, whatever. So like there wasn't like that happened, and that was a whole another story that was like completely crazy. But like Nia being reunified with her birth mom was like the major thing that happened in this episode. The only thing I will say about the treasure hunt, which was really cute, was like when Eddie wanted to like work with Buck, and Buck was like, "Oh, like I already agreed to split the money with Taylor and her cameraman," and Eddie's like,
Eddie freaking pouted. Okay.
Yeah,
he was jealous.
He freaking pouted.
He was jelly.
So like that was totally buddy vibes.
That was
Uh-huh.
totally and Buck caved. He was like, "Well, we can fit some else." I was like, he couldn't bear to like have Eddie be disappointed, and I'm like, that's all I need in life. Okay.
Honestly, like especially the last half of the season, I think the last half of the season especially gives me major buddy vibes. Like every time that we talked about an episode or even watched the few episodes together, I was like, buddy vibes, what did I say?
Oh my goodness, there's so much to deal with that, but yeah, basically very much buddy vibes.
Yeah. And then the next episode is like almost like a Josh Begins and kind of like a Sue Begins, like kind of their start. It's not like obviously begins, but it kind of like shows how they got to where they are now in a sense.
Also, this just made me want to like love and protect Josh even more.
Yeah.
I was just like, it's like,
Yeah. So like Sue gets hit by a car in this episode, and we're just like, oh. So then my mind again was like, what are they trying to get rid of her too?
Oh my goodness.
It was a real season problem, okay? And I believe this was like also an episode where Athena was trying to protect May in the sun and stuff. I think this also unraveled here a bit. I think this is also one of the moments when May was like, I think I'm gonna move out, and I was like, damn girl.
That was fast.
That was fast. You're like 18.
Yeah.
But okay. And stuff. And then like I think Bobby says it really well though. Later in the episode he says like talking about May, like you don't have to like her choices, but they are her choices. And I think that really like got it real well. Like that was like yes, exactly.
It's very true, and I think parents kind of need to realize that in general. Like you make your kids' decisions for so long, but at some point you need to let them make their decisions.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say this to my parents, like I might not be like where you want me to be, or I might not be this, but like you gotta let me make my mistakes. You gotta let me make my own choices, and I'll get where I need to be, or I'll get where I think I need to be, but it might just not happen as fast as you want it to happen.
Or it may not be what you think is right.
Exactly. And stuff. And I love the Josh Begins. So we end up being like Josh was talking to Maddie, and I like this line and stuff. And Maddie's like, do you want to go to the hospital and be with her? And he's like, no, she'd want me to be here. And I forget, like Maddie says something like, oh, like I owe her this or something, or we owe her this. And Josh is like, oh, I owe her my life. And so we like backtrack to 2006, and Josh is a freelance stenographer and stuff, and the new place he's working at, there's a fire and nobody told him. So he's just by himself, and he like calls 911 and gets Sue and stuff, and he's like, yeah, like there's a fire in my building and I'm by myself, and I'm just like, why doesn't I feel like that's something that would happen to me? Because it would. I would get forgotten.
Honestly. Especially since, he really was, he started that day. He was the new guy. And so nobody thought to check in on him. Even though you know, you see his earbuds in,
Yeah.
but also behind him you see people running. I'll be honest, did any of you think it wasn't a fire? I thought it was a shooter.
I thought it was a fire.
Yeah, I thought it was a fire.
For some reason, I was like, for the way they were acting, I thought it was a shooter.
I've seen people run like that in fires though, so like, or like when a
That's
fire alarm
just
goes off, so that's just like typical for me, I guess. Honestly, yeah.
For some reason, that was just the vibe I got, and I'm like, okay, it doesn't make any sense, but also that's a great fan fiction idea.
Honestly, yeah, like yeah, so like then like throughout this whole thing, like Josh ends up finding a woman because he goes to the stairs and he has to basically save her, and Sue tells Josh to basically go up instead of going down because he's trying to get out of the building, but she's like, no, you need to go up.
Yeah, no, I absolutely loved seeing their begins together, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah,
I'm like, you
same.
can already tell they have such a like deep bond, but
Right.
this is like showing us why.
Yeah, exactly. And stuff. And then like I like the part like later where like they finally meet in person and like he's walking around the dispatch center and like Sue had mentioned something like, I think you want my job. And he's like, oh, me? God, no. And then like he kind of agrees to it and he's like, well, can we at least get more comfortable chairs in this? And
I
it's
was like,
mood.
honey, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And like obviously like Sue ends up being okay and she's back to
Right.
work, and I really like the end where like they have her basically like sign back on like saying how she's like back or whatever, and I was like, oh
I was like, I feel like that's so unrealistic, but I don't care because that's adorable.
Yeah, one, and I really liked how they wrapped around this kind of storyline because it came out as like Sue had witnessed a girl getting kidnapped,
mm-hmm.
and instead of like she's trying to stop the guy that was like kidnapping her, but he hit her instead, and then so like she mumbled something, and that kind of helped them open the case up, like figure out some of the details of the case like later, and Athena was working on the case. And I think this is also one of my favorite lines was when Taylor and Buck were going to a dumpster and Buck's like, well, I have gloves in my truck or my car, and then like Athena shows up right then and says, don't even think about it, Buck.
That's just like mood.
I'm like, that totally like
That
her
happens.
character.
Yeah,
Love
that
them.
happens at least once a season, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real.
But yeah,
I
I
just
like
love
this
the
episode.
timing of it. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's about right.
He's like,
Yeah.
well, if we don't find anything, they won't ever know. But if we find something, we can at least tell them we found it. And
Yeah.
then, like he just as he's walking towards it, Athena pulls up behind him. It's so funny.
Right. Okay, apparently my brain is just like fried, and like the treasure hunt was episode 12, but like my mind just forgot like what order things were in. But anyways, we kind of already talked about that, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, but I like how in the end the 118 just kind of ends up working
Yeah.
together to find it, and
And
there
their
was
Proby is the one that showed up had the like box.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
loved the reappearance of Proby.
Yeah, I love the Proby.
Oh yes.
And I was like, hell yeah.
Yes, like, and there was no money the whole time. This episode, like, actually kind of reminds me of, like, Jinx in a sense, because the whole episode kind of stands out on its own, because it's, like, this whole complicated story, and as you go on, you get more and more. Honestly, not even, like, Jinx, it honestly reminds me of the episode where, at, like, the bank, that episode, where, like, that whole
Future
elaborate
Tense?
plan. No, the bank episode from, like, was it last season?
Season 2. With
I can't-
Hen getting stuck in the
Yes.
yeah.
Cause like that
Ocean's 118.
Oh, yeah, I was trying to figure out what you guys were talking about,
I
but
can't-
that one.
Okay, seasons like any season before this season honestly is a blur
Kind of
because
blurred together.
I don't remember what happened when. Like there are some episodes that like Jinx that really stand out to me, and I can tell you exactly when it happened. But like when it comes to like season 2, like I've seen it like so many times, but I also like can't remember what happened when, because we're so much further now. Like we're 2 seasons ahead, so I can't remember anything before.
Right.
Even before season 4 started, even season 4, I struggled to remember what happened in Claire, like, because this happened here. But yeah, that was that.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's just a lot that happens in each one, so I struggle to remember everything.
yeah, and we still have like 2 more episodes to talk about more of season 4, so this isn't like really it for it, but overall,
I am like really glad we decided to split this up. I'm just
I
gonna
know. Yeah, so much easier. Yeah, and like I'll just say this now that like I really like season 4. I really liked Buck in season 4. I know that Buck for us, I think we all pretty much stand on the same page. Has been a complicated journey. We
Right.
love him, but sometimes we don't love him like some people do. Like it's not a full hearted, but
We don't have the fanatic
love.
love for him
Yeah,
that
exactly.
most fans appear to. But I will say, like, each season he matures that much more,
Mhm.
even though he took a big backslide last season, but caught up again.
Yes.
But season 2 was my favorite version of Buck, and now season 2's moved to number 2 because season 4 is my favorite version of Buck. I love him.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love season 4 Buck, which I'm sure we'll get into in our next episode because there's a lot of Buck to be talking about.
Yes.
But yeah, overall season 4 I really, really, really liked it. I really liked the episodes and stuff. I think the storylines were really good and stuff. There wasn't that one storyline where I was like, ugh. Like, I guess the parents coming in, I was just like, please leave. But
I think it was necessary. So,
it was
like,
necessary.
I see it.
Yeah,
but
'cause, like,
also, like,
it was necessary for the point that we haven't met them and it's been 4 seasons. We kind of needed that background on
it
Buck.
explains so much about Buck. And Maddie, for that matter.
Oh yeah, same. Like, it really does. And I always wondered about the parents, like, what are they like? Because, like, we don't really know, and Buck has kind of been a mess. Like, Buck, in my mind, is like that kind of annoying younger brother that, like, sometimes you hate, sometimes you love.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good
But,
description.
yeah.
It's like a permanent love him, but sometimes just hate him relationship. It happens.
Honestly, it does. Thank you guys so much for joining us and listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Anchor. We're also on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, and almost anywhere podcasts can be found. On iTunes, please rate us and leave us a review. It would mean a lot to us. You guys can follow the podcast on our socials at 91LS Roundup on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We also now have a Discord server. The link is in the description of this podcast and also in our Instagram bio. And then you can follow me, Katie, at For Love of Tarlos on Instagram and at For Love of Tarlos on Twitter.
You can follow me, Grace, at RonanRafa911 on Instagram and at SheepGirl31 on Twitter.
You can follow me, EJ, at EJ8302 at Instagram and Twitter.
Bye.
Bye.